G'day everyone, welcome back. Episode 6. Episode 5 you would have seen me changing out the left hand rear quarter. Well, today we're going to get stuck in and change out the right hand side. So let's get into it. Cheers. G'day everyone, welcome back. Back out here in the shed again today working on the XY. Last episode you would have seen that I'd finished the left hand rear lower quarter. Come up pretty good. Now one thing I wanted to talk, because I'm going to move on to the other side, one thing I wanted to tell you about was all the ones that I've done, I've always cut them off like right around here below this body line. And I guess in theory it leaves a bit of strength up in the existing panel, whereas the other side I've had to, because the rust extends up inside here, it goes beyond that natural body line. Yeah, so anyway, this is a bit of a first for me, and it's a little bit flimsier, but anyway, I'm going to tackle it today. Put in that full piece. Then I also have to tack in another piece up in here to fix this bit, because the repair panel doesn't go up that high and it actually comes around here into the wheel well. So I'm going to put that in first, and then I'll patch that extra bit with some other material that I've got. Before I do that though, I've got to do this little lower inner piece, which is shot. The other side I made my own, but this side I've bought it. This is what it looks like. So quarter panel repair, sedan right hand inner. That's a bit of what it looks like. It's not perfect from the spares guys, but definitely going to fit in there alright. I've used these before. You've just got to do a bit of manipulation with it, which is fine. I've had to get that radius a little bit better, which I've already done, and just got to weld up where they've done the folds. Another thing I was thinking about was, because the torque boxes turned up yesterday, I bought them from the same company, but I think that they've got them from two different suppliers. So it made me think that, well, it's probably alright for torque boxes, as long as the material thickness is there, but the folds are a little bit different. This one, for example, is really nice and flat throughout where they've pinched in here, whereas this one, it's got a little bit of a divot just here. And the material feels a bit lighter, but I think it's just in the protective coating. But definitely the quality of the fold is probably not there in that one compared to this one. There's no indication of where this one come from, but it's got that common sticker that I see all the time. I'm not sure where that come from. So yeah, that's why I was thinking that if, like, on an exterior panel where you're going to see it, I'd definitely be sourcing, say, for these lower quarters from the same company, try and get the same ones so that they come off of the same bit of machinery when they press them out, I suppose, so they're going to look right. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to put this in this morning and then move on to the quarter. Then the next job will be these seat braces for underneath the floor. There go in. I've also got the hump support for inside the cab. Got to work out how that goes, because it's got these tubes here for the bolt to go through, and I think they somewhat line up with the hump up in the cab. So I've got to work that out. I did say to you I was going to show you underneath once before, so This car's done a bit of rock sliding in its life, I think. So there's, where is it? There it is. That's one of the floor braces. She's shot. She's had a hard life under here. That's alright. We can quickly knock that one out. Have a look at that one. That one's even worse. It's got the fair sort of a pizzling. But the rest of the floor, surprisingly good. Bit of damage there. Can knock all that out. Now the sill, I've got 2 sills coming. They've had a hard life too. And the other one's the same, I think. Oh, not as bad. It's copped a bit of a pizzling. This one's going to be interesting to knock out. So I can see a bit of rust coming through there, so I know there's definitely rust in this one. It'll be interesting to see how it looks all the way through. It'll be a good indicator on, you know, if the sill looks reasonably good from the outside, bar the dents in it. Be interesting to know what it's like actually on the inside for rust wise. I guess it depends on the car and where it's lived and whether it was looked after, whether it's been in the rain. But if you look at that side, just to look at it, bar the dents in it, you'd be assuming that's pretty good. So it's going to be cool to knock that out and have a look at that, and I'll show you that once I get it off. Alright, cheers, I'm going to get into it. So where possible, I'm only taking out small amounts of material at a time, and then I'll take my replacement piece and just put it in there periodically and just check how I'm going until I get to a point where I think that I'm roughly where I want to be. I did put some marks on where the original panel sort of sat, and where I can, I'll try and leave some of the original panels in place to give me my alignment. So it just helps me along a bit there until I'm finally ready to weld it in. You can see this piece fits in pretty good now. It did need some manipulation. That radius wasn't anywhere near where it needed to be, but it doesn't take much to manipulate that. So I'm sort of roughly where I need to be. The bottom line's there as well. So that's not too bad. I can probably go ahead and clean up now and think about tacking this into place. Following that body line, it's not too bad. I can work with that. Righto, get into it. Okay, I've prepped this panel, ready to put the copper coat on. We don't need to get too carried away because we are going to seam seal all these edges, but yeah, definitely want to get some protective coating on there. I'll rip in and do that now. Righto, so that's in now. Welded in nicely. Fully seam welded the inner quarter. Welded a bit from both sides. Can you see that? Probably do with a bit more of a clean up. Another bit of a hole there to fill in, but weld that in a sec. But yeah, I don't need to get too carried away with cleaning up welds, because let's not forget we're going to be putting that flex coat in here, so it'll sort of cover a lot of that up. But as long as it's a good, clean, tight, strong weld, we're good to go. Righto everyone, I'm about ready to put on this outer quarter. What I'm doing is just trial fitting, and I'm trimming away little bits as I go, because I don't like taking too much in one go. I'd rather spend more time trimming little bits and get it where I need it, rather than having to replace or try and fill in big gaps. So yeah, what I'm doing here is because the bumper comes around here, I figured I don't need to replace this piece up here, so I'd rather put my weld in behind where the bumper sits, just in case it doesn't quite look right, even though a bit of filler should fix that up. I just figure it's good practice to do it that way, and it's going to help me fit this piece in. It does need to come upwards here at the front a little bit, but that's good. So what I can do now is I might just mark this line through here and cut out the original material, and then trial fit again and keep sneaking this up to where it needs to be. obviously checking body lines and things like that and comparing it to the other side, and we'll just go from there. Then I'll prep it with the protective coating and copper spray and get stuck into it. Alright, so I've prepped the quarter panel, it's ready to go on. I've just primed it, I've done the copper spray and taped that off, and now just let that primer cure, and then I can put on the chassis black paint, the bitumen paint, and get it ready to weld on. Chassis black's on, copper sprayed. With any luck, that'll give me some longevity out of this repair. Obviously I still need to do seam sealer in the corners, but I'll wait until I put the outer quarter on, then I'll do the whole car. So I've got it tacked into place now. It's not too bad. I've got the body line there to line up okay. The depth of it's quite good. It just didn't line up with the wheel arch that well, so I've had to nick the front out. I'll have to fill that bit in. It's a bit unfortunate, but that's just the way it is with these panels. They're not always perfect. And I'm also going to move on to replacing this small patch here. Where I can, I like to drill the corners out. It just gives me something nice and neat to cut to, and also to weld. That's it, finished. Didn't go as well as I'd hoped. I did warp the panel a little bit, so I've got a bit of heat shrinking there to do, and obviously a bit of filler work, but overall come in pretty good. Pretty happy with it. Now, so I'm doing some rework. One of my earlier videos I did mention that I prefer to change bigger panels because they're just easier to work with, and well, I went against my better judgment on this one, and because I'd replaced obviously the lower quarter, and then I had to patch a small area up the front here, and so I just used a small patch. It turns out that the corrosion had extended up further up around the wheel arch, which you know, I should have investigated that further anyway. So basically I'm doing rework now. I wasn't happy with it, so it's the time to fix it is now. So I've just made up a bigger patch, and it turns out it's been easier to get the bends that I want, and certainly get back into some more sound material. And when I've cut it, I can see the thickness of the original steel there, versus when it's corroded, obviously from the backside you can see it's thinner, and you're just not going to be able to weld that. So now that I've cut out that larger section, I can see I've got my thickness in my steel to be able to weld back onto, and I'm not going to be blowing pinholes everywhere. So anyway, I'll get in and fix that, and then that will be the quarter finished with any luck, fingers crossed. To get this support flush and where I need it, I need to drill out the holes in the floor. This hole here's had a bit of damage over the years, and that hole there, for whatever reason, isn't in a straight line with the rest of the other three. Whether it's a flaw in the manufacturing process, or whether it was to do with the alignment of the bolts in the front bench seat, I'm not really sure on. But to get the bucket seats to all sit nice and straight, that hole needs to go backwards, similar to this one. This one's further back on the driver's side. And then the trick is to get this flush down on the floor and make sure it's all nice and structurally sound is I'm going to drill out those holes in line with these tubes, so that those tubes go all the way through the floor, and then in addition to spot welding all along the edges here to the floor, I'm going to get underneath, and then I'm going to weld around the bottom of that tube to the floor pan, and that'll give me the strength there to bolt my seats down. Right, let's get into it. Good to weld this in now. It's all been prepped, bare metal where I'm going to plug weld it. There's no point taking all the original protective coating off because yeah, it might look ugly, but it's serving a purpose, so we've left that in place. Weld through primer on the edges of the support panel, and I'm not putting the bitumen paint inside this one. I don't expect this to be exposed to the elements, and yeah, I'll just put a bit of paint in there. So that's now good to go. I did have to die grind these holes out a bit, opened them right up, so then, as I was saying before, I can weld from underneath and seal it all up, make it nice and strong. Right up, get into it. You can't be afraid to get it too hot either, so don't be afraid to turn the welder up. Yeah, a lot of times with welding this thin steel you do have to back it off a bit, but certainly when you're plug welding you want to really hook in, because you need to make sure you're getting penetration through the thickness of your base material. So I've turned this up and I'm getting a pretty good weld here. Obviously I will go underneath and check, make sure I'm getting that penetration now that I've tacked that into place, and if I need to adjust the welder I will. One side done. Remember, it doesn't need to look pretty, especially here, because it's going to be hidden under the carpet. You're never going to see it again. The most important thing is the strength. You do not want this to fail, so don't be afraid to turn it up. Get your penetration, because you're welding straight through you're trying to penetrate through to the base material. It's not the same as like a butt weld, where it's a bit easy to get penetration right along that edge, whereas here you're trying to melt right through the base material. So crank him up. You'll know if you've gone too far with it, you'll burn straight through. Righto you lot, so today I'm going to be putting in the rear of the seat braces for the rear of the seats. I've prepped the floor, taken the old ones out, prepped the floor on both sides. Just a bit of bare metal. Now I'm going to do the welding predominantly from inside the cad, because to get good welds you need to be in a good position, and certainly welding upside down is not the best position. It's probably one of the worst. So I'm going to be trying to weld downwards, but to get this nice and flush against the floor, it's going to be difficult because the floor doesn't quite line up with the panel. So first of all I'm going to have to weld from underneath just to tack it into place and get it where I want it. So I've done that. I've pre-drilled the repair panel in a few locations, roughly where I think it's going to hold it where I want it. I'm going to drill out the floor, probably in line with where the old welds were. That's the rear floor braces done. As I was saying, I've welded in from the top, so you can see where I've drilled out all the old plug welds from the factory, and I actually damaged the floor a bit when I was cutting out the old panel. So I had to weld that back up. But yeah, got those bracing tubes to line up, not too bad. I'm happy with that. Righto, so they're in, not completely finished. I've obviously got to clean them up. Bit more welding to go yet too. I'm going to do a bit of panel beating because the floor was so wonky and didn't match a nice straight repair panel. So I'm going to do a bit of panel beating and maybe stitch or seam weld some of the edges just to ensure that I have got a nice strong panel in there. But overall they're in, and quite happy with their location. Just a little bit of cleaning up and some more welding to go, and then move on to the next thing. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. That's a wrap for episode 6. I've got a lot done, as you can see. I'm really happy with the work so far, and you can probably also see that the car's stripped back a bit more than when you've seen it last too, so there's been some changes, but you're going to have to stay tuned for that in the next episode, where we also move on to the torque boxes and both sill panels. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Cheers. Bye.